But does personality matter? And how much? I think it does
I
to an
think it
extent,
matters.
but it shouldn't be all that. I think
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And this is a question I think maybe those that are with us can kind of respond to. When you think of great leadership, and when you're considering great leadership even in history, what do you think of what are the things that matter the most to you in great leadership? What are the things that you consider in great leadership in history? What are the things that you look at and say, this person was a great leader?
I think, you know what, that's such a great question.
Yeah.
Because when you look through history, I'm a leader, right?
Yeah.
And when you look through history, even the past presidents of this, great nation, there are some that did good, and there's some that didn't. But I don't think you'll find anyone that was super perfect, that had nothing. So I think that already begins to set the stage. But I think one of the things I really like in a leader is decisiveness, and the ability to get things done, and a love for the people, or the company or the corporation or the nation that they serve. And maybe I'm even getting ahead of myself, but I've often found that when mainstream media says A and you find yourself in A, you have to investigate A.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe I need to start talking about when I started having different opinions about President Trump.
Yeah. I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that,
You went to HBCU.
I went to HBCU.
Which is like a historically, black college or university for our listeners that are
for
not
my undergrad.
And so you have there's a kind of training. Well, you said that you fought it and you just
No, it's a wiring.
Yeah, it's a wiring. So you're wired in a certain way. Can you speak to that? And
not just the HBCU, a liberal arts college. Right? So those are two things. it's a combination.
It's a very interesting.
And it's a combination that I didn't think that we're going to get to this part yet. We should. It's a coloring, a lens with which
to see life.
You see life, which you see with the world. Anyone that goes through a school like that, and much like if you go through a PWI as well, predominantly white institution, there's a lens with which you see the world, and you have to be mindful of that bias. I did not know, I wasn't conscious of it for quite a while, because we're trained to be very, our teaching, our upbringing is very mindful of racial oppression.
Yep.
Right? There's no way to say it's better than that. It's like mindful of racial oppression. And I don't know if that's the intent or if that's a consequence of something else that was intended, but we all came out that way.
I think it was birthed from racial oppression, like the HBCU.
Yes.
They had to have their own
They were born out of racial
because they
oppression,
couldn't go to the regular school. So that's definitely hardwired into.
It becomes a part of the ethos, right? Okay, so now let's flash back to 2016.
2016 you is looking at
2016 me is looking at current me and is upset. And I have to say this because at the time we had brothers and sisters, like Christian brothers and sisters, and I just used to look at them like, these people must be out of their minds.
The white evangelicals.
Like, they must be out of their minds. They must be blind. They can't see. Like, how can they say these things? And I wasn't just like quietly, I'm always vocal.
Yeah.
I'm always vocal. Whatever I believe, I say.
Yeah.
So I was in fact, I think if you go back to Facebook or the different platforms, you can probably still find my 2016.
Probably identified as a liberal.
Yeah, you could probably still find my 2016 post where I was like, these people don't know what in the world they're doing.
How can Christians
support this racist guy?
Yep.
I don't think we need to talk about that. So I remember waking up the day that, because I'd waited to get the election results, it was just too much. I went to bed. I still remember exactly where I was when my roommate woke me up and told me that I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. The guy in the next room woke me up and said, Donald Trump is president.
Yep.
I was devastated.
I know.
Like, I literally thought the world had ended.
I know someone who went into depression for that.
No, see, I was so concerned. I was concerned about a lot of things.
Yeah.
One, they had told us that the nation was going to be at war.
Yep.
So I was fully expecting that
this was the
there'll
end
be
for
bombs.
black people.
This was going to be
Immigrants are going to be sent back
I was
to
fully
their
expecting.
countries.
At the time, I was on a visa. I think I'm not sure which type of visa I was. I was expecting I was going to get deported.
Yeah, and names of and that's even further down. But remember when names of countries came out when Trump first published names of countries that couldn't get visas into the US?
Yeah. I remember that.
That was we're like, they said it. This is it. This is it.
And then when he said what he had said about, I don't know if it was Nigeria or some African country, where he called it some funny name. But
yeah,
anyways, I really thought the worst was going to happen. I really thought the worst, and it took me a while to start to address. Let me tell you one of the first things that got my attention. When I started to realize that, hold up. Most of us US immigrants are wired to think in a particular direction.
Yeah.
Specifically now I was dealing with Nigerians because I knew a lot of Nigerians that were all liberal.
Yeah.
But then I started observing the values, the generic values of liberalism in America.
Yeah.
And I thought, these things do not align with our values that we brought.
Yeah.
Like even the things that we believe as individuals via our upbringing, they don't align.
Yeah.
The main thing on which we hung our hats
and
on which our decision was made was immigration. And it started to, that's where the whole thing started to crumble for me, because it now didn't make sense. Especially because I'm thinking that this is a country that is uniquely different from every other nation in the world, right? And it did not get there by putting the interests of other nations first. Ahead of itself. It got there by putting its own interests first. Now that I'm in it, I want to demand that it should put the interests of other people first. Yeah. What is that going to do?
Who do you think China cares about? China cares about nobody but China.
Yeah. So what about you? What's your journey like?
Oh, I think my journey started changing in 2020. I was deeply convinced that, Trump was...
Whoa, 2020, you went there a long time.
Oh yeah, I waited that. Oh no. Yeah, because I mean, growing up or living where I lived, I live in Philadelphia. And Center City, Philadelphia is very LGBTQ plus. It's very liberal. It's very blue, and so it just like Trump was not a good guy, and even the media, like everything he did, he was going to destroy the land. I think it started with I'll never forget. I remember the climate change. And coming to work that day,
the Paris Accord.
The Paris Accord. Coming to work that day, my boss at work is very climate conscious. I think she doesn't even eat meat. I had coworkers that didn't eat meat because of climate change. And so they were like, oh, Trump has left the Paris Accord. The country is going to go. Does he know what? And I didn't know what climate change was really about and what the Paris Accord was. So I decided to read up on it. And that was what changed everything. So I read it, and I read what the news was saying. I think MSNBC, Washington Post, this is devastating. He doesn't care about climate. And then I read the White House press, their press release on why Trump left the Paris Climate Accord, and it seemed rational to me. And then I realized, maybe there's something about this guy that I don't really like. So let me tell you.
Up until this point, you were anti.
Up until this point, I was anti-Trump. And then I read it, and it was interesting what he said, and this is one of the reasons why I even say I have such an admiration and a love for Trump. And I think that's extreme to say, but I
don't think it's extreme.
Well, for some people, I love and admire Trump because he loves this country. And I hate to see the wiping away of the love of this nation, because when I was outside this nation, America was the greatest nation on earth, and every American believed that. And I came here and Americans hate their country. Like, we hate our country left there to here. Where do you think
To
you're
come
going to
and
go?
hate another
To come
country.
and hate? No, but then America didn't get here. They said we're the greatest nation. No, it wasn't even true that they were the greatest nation until they became. And this is the
They
great.
said it till
They
it
said
happened.
Till it happened, and you have to love. They like, that's why their military is the strongest military in the world. I mean, they give like that patriotism, right? Again, doesn't mean that the country doesn't have a shady past.
Yeah.
We're not taking away the past of, killing the Indians in the land. We're not taking away those things. Every country has a sordid history. Even in Africa, we sold our own people as slaves. We all have weird and strange histories, but this nation, that an Irish can leave Ireland and come here and make it. That a Jamaican can leave Ireland and give birth, can leave Jamaica and give birth to a woman, a child who is vice president of America. Which other nation in the world can that happen? This was what I found out about the Paris Climate Accord, and this was what Trump was saying. Trump was saying that, hey, we're pulling out of this thing because it's not in our best interest, and he explained it. He said, look, number one, I looked it up. The Paris Climate Accord was a group of countries coming together to say that they wanted to stop carbon emissions. Yeah. And then there's no contract. It's a handshake deal. Countries that are third world countries will be given money to build up climate green infrastructures. By who? The richer countries. So countries like India with high GDP were claiming to be underdeveloped. America was sending US taxpayer dollars in millions, hundreds of millions, out to other nations in the name of climate change. Trump said, actually, the agreement was that all of us that are emitting the highest carbon emissions will reduce ours. He said, we're far ahead and we reduced ours. I don't agree that we should send money to other nations when we need these monies in our country for our people. And so I'm pulling out of this stupid accord. And I read that and I thought, this is reasonable. This puts Americans in view. The other people should do what they need to do for their own countries. We are dealing with ours in our country, and it's actually lesser. In fact, we're one of the only people meeting our quota. I thought this is a rational thing to do. So I then thought, okay, maybe everything I know about Trump is a lie. I need to revisit it. The second thing was the racism allegations. I never saw enough proof that Trump was racist. I just think that Trump would never have had black people work for him. Like, nobody would have. Think about the people that were applying. They put a picture and said, the whitest set of interns in the White House. I thought, which black person would have applied to the White House when Trump was there? Trump faced difficulty every single day of his election. He couldn't drink water. He couldn't put the cup down.
Back to this Paris Accord thing, I was asking a question earlier about the qualities that we value in leaders, and one of the things, the biggest quality that I value in leaders is courage.
Yeah.
And courage is the ability to stand in the face of severe opposition.
Yep.
And if I had to vote based off of who, and I'm talking about just looking in history and seeing the leaders that I respect, the leaders that I think are the best leaders that this world has had, the key thing for me is courage, the strength to stand in the face of severe opposition. Absolutely. And if I had to vote on the back of that alone, my vote is clearly for Trump. And it goes, just to come back to what you're saying, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. I strongly believe that if given the opportunity of another term, the Liberal Party will sell this nation out.
Oh, absolutely.
I really believe so. That they will sell this nation out. I think that fundamentally, they are even very clearly and obviously divesting themselves from the idea of
a nation,
like
America
being special,
united, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
And they're going for a different outlook.
Right.
On life that does not put America first.
Do you know one thing? Again, talking about like decisiveness, I feel like Trump, what you talked about courage, I was listening to a podcast, and again, I've listened to, I think podcasts, again, if you're listening to this, other resources that you can have are podcasts, because I think in podcast conversations, they're able to talk freely in a way that the debate and CNN and MSNBC can't really capture them. So that's a really good way. When I listen to Trump and, I'm able to hear, he talks like the average person, not a politician. He's not talking weird numbers and weird figures. He speaks plainly. When I listen to the other side, I'm almost like, can't really figure out what you're saying. I can tell that you have a heart for people and you're able to put words together to conjure emotions, but I don't really know what you're about.
What you stand for.
Right. And something funny, Trump said, after he was shot in Butler, he said when he goes back, he's gonna start his speech by, as I was saying. And he did. He was in Pennsylvania. And so that courageousness, but the decisiveness, right? He's a strong
It's a courage
character.
to be decisive, by the way.
They're one and the same. So when he came in, they said, oh, how can he have the, people were profiling him as a narcissist, this, how can he have the nuclear codes? We didn't go to war. In fact, he kept China away. He kept Russia. They were all scared. Everybody was, because they knew that this guy is, I don't know, he's crazy. But then, interestingly, I think he was talking to the Taliban. This is a true story. He was talking to the Taliban, and he wanted them to stop killing people in, I think Afghanistan, wanted them to stop killing people. And he told the guy, he was talking to the guy, and the guy said, oh, that, so the guy, he gave the guy a picture of his family. And he said, why am I looking at this picture of my family? He said, well, I'll let you decide that, but this and this and this are my terms, and you're not going to kill anybody again. Like the gangster, like you have to be that kind of president to protect people. And no American was killed.
By the way, what you're talking about, we have a whole generation that's not familiar with that. I like to refer to it as the Spider-Man generation. So I don't know if you remember which of the Spider-Man it was, but the one with Tom Holland where he had mistakenly, was trying to get his friends into school, so he wanted to wipe people's memories about, him being exposed as Spider-Man, and in the process of it, he disobeyed the clear instructions that he was given, right, when this magic was being conducted by Dr. Strange, and he starts bringing in from past Spider-Man installments, starts bringing in all the villains, and dude, when it came, it was a matter of, okay, let's send him back, but he didn't want to just send them back. He wanted to save them. So he goes on this adventure to save them, that he believes that there's good in them and that he can change them, and in the process of it, his aunt dies. Right? She pays the price for his naivety, in my opinion. And I think that there's a whole generation that does not understand anything that you're saying, and the importance of it, the importance of that, like the fact that your safety is a result of some people's hardness. And you don't believe that anybody in the world should be hard.
Like, think about Putin walking into the White House and Kamala is there and Trump is there. Like, they're always playing mind games. Like, you see that handshake thing, Trump is a great, but it was a power thing, and you have to be that way because we are the United States of America. We can't be anything else.
Let's hear from, because I'm looking at the time, let's hear from anyone else that would like to say something or share a thought.
So what I wanted to add, it's actually a question, but and this is regarding the very beginning of Biden's tenure, right? And so we know that, I think it was January, we know that there was a protest that happened
January 6th.
Yeah, January 6th. Yep. And the majority of it was Republicans, right? Republicans, they thrashed the Congress House, the Congress, and obviously, it was very clear that you could see that they were advocating for Trump, right? They were advocating that he should get another 4-year term and everything. And
by the way, I think their focus was more that they felt like the election was stolen. I think they were more angry about the potential that there was Reagan. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, like I mean, from the way I see it right now, like I feel like it was something like much more deeper. I think that I feel like obviously because of like the amount of hate that people have for Trump, they just look at the Republicans and it's like, oh, they just the Republicans, they just doing whatever just because like of like they gave a bad image to the Republicans. But I feel like that protest alone, right? I feel like it was I just feel like it was something like deeper, even deeper than just them advocating for him to have another 4-year term. I just feel like it's something deeper, and it's not something that I can really say like right now. But it's like from the way I listen to this conversation, and from the way I just like think about like everything that's been happening from like 2020 to like now, like I just feel like it's something deeper.
So I think on that front, right, talking about January 6th, I don't think that he was his finest moment.
Yeah.
In terms of his communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I
don't think it was his finest moment, and I think that largely because he was also salty about losing.
And he was also Trump being Trump.
Yeah.
And I hope he's learned, because as a president, your words matter.
Your words matter.
Did he say those things intending that people will go to the streets? I don't think so. But did he incite by what he said? I think absolutely.
I think he did.
Yeah.
So and you also have to be mindful of your constituents. But another thing that I also think was at play there is like the strength of, I think it was a group of people, a large group of people whose voices are constantly being silenced, feeling like they're backed into a wall and having no other way to respond but to fight. I think that that's what was. Now, to be very clear, I am not excusing or advocating or condoning what it is that they did, but remember something. Someone said earlier, I think it was Ayo that was speaking earlier when I was talking about how in 2016 he felt like we all hate Trump, but the man won.
Yeah.
But the man won. So somehow there seems to be a very strong rhetoric in several parts of the United States that make you feel like he has no business being in power. Meaning that there's a group of people that are actively, for every time you turn on the TV and mainstream media or social media only pushes anti-Trump conversation. Yeah. That's a whole group of millions of people with the same rights as, Democrats, feeling like their voices are being stifled.
Yeah.
So I think it was reactionary in terms of that, being upset that we're not being heard, and acting out. Do I condone it? No. Do I think it was a smart move? No. Do I think it was good? No. I don't agree with any of it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do you feel about, like, because someone had said to me, like, I'm not a fan of Kamala. I'm a Christian. I don't even really think I stand for the things she stands for, but I just can't be on the same side as racists and neo-Nazis. How do you respond to that?
I think that's a very interesting thing because, there are some scriptures that people have used in the past that, even I won't even lie to you, I didn't want to hear in 2016. I didn't want to hear in 2016 that the children of the Israelites were given the opportunity to go back and to build their land and to build the wall and to build their temple, that they were given the permission and the support to do it by Cyrus, who was prophesied to do that years before he was born and called by name, but that he would do something like that, being a heathen king.
Right.
A heathen king that was holding them in captivity still. Like, granted that he gave them the opportunity to go and do that, he was still actively, in a way, holding them in captivity. It's not all of them that were released. A lot of them were released to go, right? But some of them were kept back. So when people say, like, something like that, like, oh, I can't be behind a racist and a neo-Nazi. Things like that come to mind for me.
It's uncomfortable. Is it uncomfortable?
No, I don't think, based on what I just described, I don't think it's uncomfortable. It's a matter of, and Christians don't like to hear this, right? But we really have to ask ourselves again and again, what do we put forth first, right? Do we hold forward first? Do I hold forward first my blackness, right? Mm-hmm. Which some may say is an important part of my identity, or do I hold forward first my Christianity, which some may say is also part of my identity? Which one do I put forward first if I was forced to pick between the two, right? Are there, racists that support Trump? Absolutely yes. But I dare say, and this is my belief, because neither one of us have the data to support, right? I dare say that there's an equal number of racists that support Kamala. And I've often said
the idea that Democrats are
racist
is a fable.
Propaganda that was sold to us and that we ate up. Because understand this, right? Someone said, the enemy I know is better than
the angel I don't know.
Yeah. So in a way, you have to remember that. And I've said this because I've worked in government. I've met people of different races. I've met different kinds of racists. I've met the racist that called me the N-word to my face because he was drunk. And one of the things that really got my attention in that experience was, if I met this guy at work tomorrow,
you wouldn't know.
I would not. I probably would not know. This is in the state of Maryland, in Baltimore City.
One of the blackest cities.
One of the blackest cities in the US. One of the most liberal cities even in the US. You can't think of winning in Baltimore City as a Republican. No Republican has won in years. So in that same place, a guy, because he's inebriated, is that the word that they use, and not in control of his mind, spews out his heart. But if he goes to work the next morning, he'll probably smile at me.
Yeah.
So I think that it's living in la la land to think that because someone is not yet calling you the N-word, that they don't believe that you should be subjugated and in the backsides of the office place. There are people that and the danger with such people is you don't see them coming. I always say that if I know that someone is racist and they hate my guts for the color of my skin, I can watch my back around them. But if they're smiling at me, that smile? If they're smiling at me...
don't.
Let's say something bad.
We all know that smile.
We all know that smile. But if they're giving me that smile, and I don't know that they have the same opinions, am I not at greater risk? They will sell to me policies that are going to screw me over and paint it as
that's exactly
something
what's
that's great for me and get me to sign.
And every year the Democrats come and say, black people, we see you, we notice you, we love you, come join us. And they do nothing.
I heard something about, and I haven't fact checked this myself, but apparently the Black Caucus tasked, you probably heard this in that same video we both listened to, tasked this guy, Jewish guy, white guy, tasked him with leading the committee on reparations for black people. And after a period of time, because the guy was also a part of the Liberty Caucus, which is the Black Caucus, of course black, Liberty Caucus, rainbow type stuff. Apparently he came out with, I think they came up with a LGBTQ reparations something.
That didn't even help
instead of the black thing that the guy was in there for.
And I think that black people, I think one of the things that I would say to the black community is what benefits Americans benefits everyone else. Because for instance, Black Lives Matter. Oh, they took so much money. They were Black Lives Matter. What they do with the money? They help themselves. Like they bought houses and cars and lived amazing lives, and nothing, like nothing came of it. So when we begin to love our nation, when we begin to look and see, and another thing, just to even tie up this conversation, because there's a few like fast questions I want to ask. I've thought about this and I've mulled this over in my mind. A Satanist would never vote for someone who has hands laid on them in the White House and is praying. We know where the Church of Satan and the Satanists are voting, and I think I'll choose my bets to stand with against them, because like a Satanist is not voting Republican. Like we all know where they're going to.
And even where they go as far as like Satanists.
And they are Satanists.
Yeah, but also think about like all of the stuff that's been coming out recently about like pedophilia in like high quarters
and who
in
they
America,
support.
and who they support.
Like we all, and this was a big thing that I was gonna say. One reason to vote Trump is he's anti-establishment. Yeah. And what that means is that there's a deep state. Nobody can argue it at this point unless you want to just be like, there's a deep state. They control media, they control fashion, they control celebrities, they control the things you see on your TV, they control the news stations, and they control politics, protests, organizing, and they control presidents.
And they're not political.
And they're not they're non-state.
They're non-state
actors that put. I heard that Kamala had raised $1 billion.
They're only interested in who they can control. And they've been known to be on the Republican side. They've been known to operate on the Democratic side based on who they can control. Yeah.
And when you look at Biden, Harris, Waltz, and when you look at Trump, Vance, who do you think they can control? Yeah. And one of the reasons I'm excited for Trump's presidency is, one, his alliance with RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, I think Jr. He's Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And the reason is because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has fought against big pharma and big agric. So to have someone like that in his government that they're already liaising,
I wish we had time to talk about that.
Like that's a point. Like you've seen him with Elon Musk when Elon Musk bought Twitter. And again, sorry for all the people that lost their jobs, but it was overinflated. And so Trump is like, we need to cut government spending. I'm gonna bring in Musk to cut government spending. And you know, Musk is say what you want, but he's an efficient guy. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to those things being added, in that, as well as like common sense economic policies. This idea that
but this thing that you said about like the alliance with RFK and big pharma, and
it's anti-establishment
and big agric. It's really important for us to be mindful of things like that. I've been very mindful of these things recently more than ever before. I was recording a news piece for one of low-watt stations, and one of the news things that we're talking about was how that a U.S. federal court recently gave a court order for the regulation of fluoridation in water.
Wow.
And this is something that pastors have been talking about, and some people have been thinking like, what in the world is he saying? Yeah. And according to the news, it was discovered in some recent toxicology report that you only require 1.5 milligrams of fluoride in whatever quantity, right, for you to start experiencing neurodevelopmental damage in children. And apparently, the EPA had approved 4.
Whoa.
And this has been for years.
So we're seeing spikes in
neurodevelopmental challenges
for children.
And they even mentioned that this is the first time that the EPA would be challenged in that way.
Wow.
And who's usually behind those kinds of challenge things?
People like RFK and his team, yeah. And this is his career, protecting the food that we eat, protecting the drugs. And so when I see Trump working,
I talk about how we're literally killing, like America's literally killing its citizens.
Exactly.
Look at this fluoridation thing, for instance. Like, who thinks about fluoridation in the morning?
Nobody. You wake up and we have people drinking tap water.
You're drinking more than twice what is required to damage a child's brain.
Almost 3 times.
Think about that.
Yeah, almost 3 times.
Just think about that. Who's thinking about that on a daily basis? Who's thinking about the fact that we're eating food that's banned in many countries?
Or the organic fruits or the fertilizers that should be banned, that shouldn't be used. I mean, things like that. So especially that, even that alone, if RFK can come into the administration either as someone in a special advisor, a senior advisor, running a commission, that is I think even that alone is a major victory.
Yeah.
Cutting government spending is a major victory. And then Trump's I really say common sense policy. Trump is not promising you any free thing. He's promising you tax cuts, ease in starting your business, and a good economic environment to do that.
And tax cuts may cost money, but that's
but tax cuts
that's a sensible, they promote business. Like that's even the average person
can understand
that.
Because
it's not the same as handing me a free check.
Right. When Harris says we're gonna forgive loans, okay, think about that. Where's the money coming from? We're gonna give everyone a $25,000. I don't know how much she said, to buy a house. That's another loan that you can't afford. Oh, school's gonna be free for everyone. Who's gonna pay for that? And they're still sending money for climate change. They're still sending money to Ukraine. They're still sending money to other parts of the world. Who's gonna pay for that? But Trump is saying, hey, we're gonna increase fracking. We're going to bring back steel. He's putting regulations that if you're a company in America, don't take your factory to China, put your factory here so that people can work here and there can be more jobs for everyone. Tax cuts is the reason why young people, Amazon can have a factory and young students, 16 or 18, I don't know what the age is, can go and work. They say, oh, they don't tax the big corporations because if you tax them, they're gonna take all their business outside. It's simple. The rich are gonna be richer. The Bible says the poor will be with us forever, so will the rich. No, but the poor will be with us forever, but so will the rich be.
Yeah.
And they're only gonna keep getting richer. So when a small business is allowed to thrive, they employ more people.
Yeah.
They open more branches.
And can we also talk about, I always say that very soon, at some point, we're going to have to do run the postmortem of the COVID pandemic.
Let's
talk about all the bodies
the bodies
that have been buried. Now, when I say the bodies, I'm talking specifically about the large number of small and medium-sized businesses that were killed by decisions that were made by this government that were not founded on anything factual.
Yeah. I mean...
Wow. Lot to...
there's a lot more to think about than, is Trump a nice guy?
Yeah.
There's a lot more to think about than, who cares about the less privileged, even immigration. Let's talk about immigration because, you talked about being on a visa. I also came to this country on a visa. I've been here on a visa. And I think people think that, America is not, you wouldn't want to come to this country if everybody could just come in.
Yeah.
And the point is, there are legal ways to immigrate.
Yeah.
Why would anyone want to come? Do you know there are multiple ways to actually migrate to this country, different levels, whether it's on a big... And any country, the best...
By the way,
yeah.
Someone said something, said, go and look at the countries that open their borders wide.
Are there any countries like that?
No, not open their borders wide, but were lax with their immigration in certain areas. They literally, some of them are fighting to retain their culture and their ideologies.
Right.
Their culture and ideologies. And it's a serious fight.
It is.
France, for instance, in recent news, the battles that they've had, against... So now, I'm not saying that it's wrong for people to move countries.
Oh, absolutely.
But for your country to remain your country, and for your country to retain its strength, and for your country to retain its prosperity, that's where there are borders. Right. And some Christians don't realize that God does not have a problem with borders. He literally says in the scripture that he assigned to the nations their borders, and he gave angels to be in charge of them.
And when he had the 12 tribes of Israel, he told them, this is where
you will be.
This is where you would be.
Yeah.
Even when they were in the wilderness, there was a way that they were meant to be.
Because some Christians believe that kumbaya, love.
Oh, the globalists.
Love is the way. Let's
all be together, one world.
Like who? And let me tell you something, by the way. I can say these things and say them boldly because I've said things in this life that if you hear, you would think. Like I rewind some things that I said, and I think to myself, what in the world was I thinking? Because I easily fell for those things that I was given to eat.
Right. But even this immigration, right? Because there's the argument that everyone in the US came from somewhere, and that's true. The first people that came here came on a boat.
Yeah.
The people that came here, the slaves unwillingly came here, you know, so and so and so, and the country has developed hundreds of years later, and here we are. We can't work like that.
Yeah.
America has to be able to bring in the safest people because there's evil out in the world.
Absolutely.
We can't allow in
Spider-Man mentality.
Yeah, like we can't allow in nations that pose like, or people, right, that pose, and even people from those countries are more scrutinized, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
America has enemies and we have allies.
Yep.
Right? In the same way, when people come in, you have to import, you have to let the best people in, the people that will give your country advantage, like what happened in World War II. It was the scientists that were fleeing Europe that came here that helped develop that. So we can't deny, and I think that's something where the Republican Party, you know, in order to cater to a certain demographic, they failed to say that even their fathers, for some of them, they can trace their ancestry back to Germany.
Yeah.
They can trace it back to
and not too far back.
And not too far back. It's actually not that far. They can find ship records of when they are. So we all came to this country, but we can't continue the same open, everyone coming policy that we have because the world has drastically changed.
Yeah.
And so if people want to come, just come in the right way.
Yeah.
That's just my argument. And let's not pretend that bringing in 10 million, 15 million, 20 million people does not put pressures on the nation.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing in those people, there's no screening, they can't speak English, they can't really be a part of, because speaking English is a part of what helps them. It's not even about,
absolutely.
No, it's just like,
it was just funny the way you said it, like you just sounded like
like a racist. No, because it's I think it's important at the bare minimum. So
can I say something? I need to be clear
economy.
on something, even though I just laughed now.
Yeah.
I need to be clear on something. The reason why that what you just said was reasonable. Anybody listening,
but someone was triggered. Yeah.
But those are things that can easily trigger. Why? Because that's what
we've been wired.
We've been wired to think. And I think it's a good point for me to say something. It's very important that you realize. I say to people all the time that people think we have a mind of our own. Nobody has a mind of their own. Nobody has a mind of their own. You now have to watch who are the people that taught you the things that you believe. You don't have an original idea. You don't have an original thought. Whatever you think, whatever opinion you have came from somewhere. What I think, what my opinion is, came from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, I have the scriptures to have as an anchor and say, all things being equal, I can return to this as a foundation. Yeah. But for the most part, everything that you believe you were taught.
Right.
And you were taught by a media that is pervasive, a media that is aggressive, a media that is literally, everywhere you turn, they can make you see the same things over and over again until even things that you would naturally not have believed, you find yourself believing. Come on, let's look at even this rainbow agenda thing that we've talked about. We've all, in some way, become less moved by
normalized,
the open, even some heavy exposure of a certain level of sexualization. People, they are hardcore Christians that can now live through a gay sex scene on a TV show. At the time, you would have thought that was impossible.
Yeah.
But now you're like, it doesn't do anything to me. That shows you that over time you were taught something. Meaning that in every other area, things that you believe, be mindful that the same media is teaching you things. And they are not, you're thinking that they're just reporting to you what exists. No, they're intentional. They're strategic. They're mindful of what they're going to feed you.
Right. So, and then just a few more hot topics. Hopefully, there's a way to cut some of these things. We need to edit it, but climate change. how should we think about climate change?
You know, I argued with someone at work. I think on climate change, I argued with someone at work, and I think he was quite shocked that I had a different opinion. Yeah, like, you know,
like, what?
You're an intelligent person. How can you say this?
Oh, that too. The idea that intelligent people should be liberals.
Oh yeah,
The idea that
it's also
educated
propaganda.
people should be propaganda.
You're told that the unintelligent.
You have 2 master's degrees.
Hillbilly.
Yep, those are the Republicans.
What do you call it?
Redneck.
That's Republicans. The smart PhDs, researchers, the liberals. That is, it couldn't be further from the truth.
And in fact, it's taught.
Yeah.
From the day you enter school, it's taught. I remember the first time, I think it was maybe around 2015, where I went to class and I heard that there are different genders. And do you know what's funny? I didn't question it. Because I was hearing it from an authority figure.
You know what someone said? That the biggest, someone said that the biggest strategy that liberalism did in America was to go into the universities. And you know, Pastor Chris said this more than 30 years ago. He said it in talking to young people on campus. More than 30 years ago.
Wow.
Pastor must have been about my age. Yeah. And he said this at the time. He said it to them. He said the philosophy in the classroom today is going to be the controlling. I don't know the exact word, but he said the philosophy in the classroom will be the philosophy in the government houses. And that's what they did. They turned universities that were seminaries.
That's true. Into liberal arts colleges. And
over a process of time, and people think that it was accidental. It was not.
It was intentional.
It was intentional. Over a process of time, they changed. Go and look at the history of even some of the Ivy Leagues. They were seminaries. They were Christian schools. But over time, they were turned into liberal arts colleges. And just like you said, authority figures began to, and they were intentional about it, began to communicate an ideology for the next generation.
So you have like women
and
studies.
We're not mindful that it's actively happening again.
Yeah, it is. And so I didn't question it then. I remember just learning gender is different. And there are textbooks, it's going to be in the exam. Gender is different from sex. You can have sex, but you can have different. But as I grew up, I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, and then one day I'm filling out a form and I see Z, 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 like
how did we get here?
I'm thinking, how does a person decide?
And by the way, we've had someone on this podcast. Okay, maybe I shouldn't mention the name, but a friend of mine went to start a job, and this lady kept insisting that he puts his pronouns. He said, "But I don't believe in that." He said, "No, it's going to make others feel comfortable." And she kept pushing, and he insisted. He said, "No, I'm not going to do it."
Interesting.
And someone would say he could as easily have just put he, him.
Yeah.
But he said, no, I don't want to put him because I want to fight the very concept.
I remember like the last day I had it, I saw someone signing their email, like their sign-off email. In an email, you're neither male nor female. It doesn't matter to me. Why should I know whether to, well, whatever, sure. And then I think that was the day I then added a scripture to my own bio in school.
Let's go.
And I was like, okay, let's all be uncomfortable.
If you can make me uncomfortable, let me make you uncomfortable too.
And so my student email, is a scripture.
But back to climate change, right? So I was having a conversation with this guy. And, he said, because this was Hurricane Milton, this is crazy what we're doing to the world. And by the way, have you noticed, something you can always notice clearly with liberalism is that it targets and charges up your emotions.
Yep.
It's always about stirring up your emotions to the point of irrationality.
Right. And a sense of like weird and abstract good versus bad.
Yes.
Like there's no absolute, but there's just some arbitrary.
You don't take the vaccine, you're evil. Do you remember that was a thing? Do you remember that was a thing?
Yeah.
And I keep telling people, like, let's not do as if we do not live in the same country together.
We lived in it. Like, let's not forget.
You were literally told that you're a bad person. by the President of the United States. He didn't say it in hiding. He said you're a bad person, and almost to the point of, do you remember when he said that that those are not vaccinated are going to die? Mm-hmm. Almost to the point of telling you that this is your fate for whatever you believe in. Now we're so far from it, we've almost forgotten. Yeah. So always emotionally charged in a way that forces you. It's like you must. Yeah. If you don't agree with me, you're evil.
I also became super suspicious when the government started caring more about me than my mom. You know, it's like when did you all care about me this much? You know, suddenly you care about my life.
A past president of the U.S. said that. I think what?
Or if Uncle Sam comes to you, and if the government
6 words, you should always be afraid of.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help you.
Say no that you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
No, like, and these are so. This guy asks me, you know, he starts talking about how, we're destroying the world, and then he says, that there's a video online. I think he's gonna watch this because apparently my office people have found my podcast. But anyways.
But your opinions do not reflect that of your office or
my
company.
These opinions do not reflect that of my employers.
They are yours and yours alone.
No. How did they say it again? Maybe someone should give me the full script. Let me read it. Praise God, before I'm out of a job in the morning. But
you're gonna you're gonna make so much money suing them.
Suing them?
Yeah, that happens. Like you're about to.
Anyways, so this guy, he says, that there's a video online of a newscaster that breaks out in tears online from while reporting Milton about how we can be doing this. It's so touching. I need to watch it. So he sends me the video, and I watch this old man, crying about how this is our fault. Like he breaks down on air. Like this is our fault. The hurricane is taking, and those things have a way of swaying your mind. So after he said all of this, I said I'm a bit of a climate change skeptic. I think both he and the other guy were quite like, what? He said, but the evidence is there. I said, my first concern is, you may say that over the past however many years, temperatures have been going up or whatever, because they change it from time to time. They say it was going up before, they say it was going down, whatever it was. That you may say, you have this graph and what has been changing.
And every day is getting hotter than the
It's getting hotter and so on and so forth, like by average. I said, that's okay, but we know that man, as far as like history of man that we have, like material, we only have enough information over the past 5,000 plus, going on 6,000 years. But we all agree that the world is millions of years old. So if I see a spike relative to the millions of years, I'm even saying let's even say what you're saying is real.
So
relative to the millions of years that the earth has been in existence, that thing is inconsequential. We know how, we all went to school. If I plotted a graph and you have a graph that's 100 units long, and then you make an observation in 0.00001, because 0.0000001 of it, you make an observation. Is that relevant data for making a decision about
even more strange,
how the graph is tracking?
Even more strange is the fact that, first of all, you don't know how the universe came here.
Yeah.
There was a time where the earth was a ball of ice.
No, let me tell you. Let me also tell you the next argument that he makes. Right. So he listens to what I'm saying and says, okay, fair. That's a founded argument. He said, but we've also noticed a correlation between that and the industrialization of the world, right? I said, that's a fair argument, but that's still neither here nor there, because you don't know what the world is capable of doing and what it has done in this ancient history. But then he drops a very interesting one. He says to me, but he quotes one of these daytime TV show guys, and the guy said that if we invest resources in climate change to curb climate change, and discover later on that we were wrong, right? The only thing would have lost is money. But if on the flip side, hold on, if on the flip side, we don't invest and it turns out to be real, we would have lost everything. And I thought, very interesting argument. I said, but you're failing to include a very important consideration there. Imagine this scenario that I just painted. I agree with you. But would your opinions change if I, as a country that's smaller than yours, discovers that there's no way that I can topple your leadership or your rulership over the earth, right? And then start to cook up an ideology that you can agree on, that over time, based on the spend of it, the weight of the cost on you and on other nations that are superior to me will either even out or I'll come out ahead. That is, I'm saying if there's any aspect of this that is calculated by a state or non-state actor, does it change your opinions? Because now it won't just be money that's lost. It'll be ways of life that's lost.
Yeah.
It'll be the arrangement of nations in terms of their relevance in the world that's lost. It'll be so many things that are lost. Does that change your opinion? So I said all of that to say, like, this climate change thing, I think that people need to look more closely at it and ask hard questions, especially given, like, the example you gave about the Paris
Climate
Accord.
Yeah. I think that, like, one of the modus operandi of the deep state is to invent a problem and come up with a sinister and wicked solution to a non-problem.
This is enshrined in documentation,
right?
That some have denied in the past. I think something of the Rockefeller,
right?
Or what do you call that document?
So I've actually seen a document, but maybe I'll need to pull it up when we publish this. But this is very similar to COVID. When we look back at COVID wasn't affecting young people, wasn't affecting healthy people. And when we look back, we see that the measures that we're taking were actually more detrimental, did more harm. In fact, the vaccine caused more deaths than not taking it would have cost. And so the means did not justify the end. I think the end did not justify the means. I think the climate thing is not about climate, and people need to understand that. Now, I'm a climate skeptic. I don't even know that the measurements they are using are right. Because how are you able to measure all the CO2 and know how much, like, as far as like the science behind that, let's even assume it's true. Let's even assume that climate change is a thing and the world is heating up. Does it justify the policies that they're making? Does it justify the way that they want to? Because it's about control. I read a document that was listing out what countries are going to need to do and what the way of life needs to be for everyone in order to curb climate pollution. And it detailed something along the lines of buying only 4 new clothes a year. I'm not kidding. Because people don't read. You can only take one 1-hour flight every year or something like that. No meat. No eating meat. There was one other thing that stood out for me. No eating meat or eggs. No changing of clothes or changing with just 4 articles. You couldn't really fly because flights bring so much emission to the world. And then cars. Every family share a car because we want to...
That's a real thing. This document is a real
Right, this document is a real... I can share with everybody. I've read it. And when I read it, I thought, who wants to live this kind of life? And why should I, are we now all going to, it's giving communism, it's giving control, but if they can all deceive us that climate change is going to kill all of us and this is what we need to do, it's the same way that everybody was in their house. So this is what we need to do to fight COVID.
You control people in a state of hysteria.
Take a dangerous vaccine that's going to kill. In fact, I was going to take the vaccine.
Take a vaccine that's not been tested.
I was going to take the vaccine. So I was looking for where to take it. So I went to CVS or Walgreens, and when No, I went online because you had to book online to take it.
No, I didn't know you were.
Really? You know this? I think I told you this.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was gonna take it, and then I was gonna take the Johnson & Johnson because I needed to travel. That's why I needed to take it. And so I was like, I need the one that's just one shot. So when I got there, they said you could pericarditis, myocarditis. Do you agree that you could die of any of these things? I'm not kidding. It's because you guys. No, it listed a list of things: blood clots, period, increase in period pressure, heavy flow for women. And then I said, what? I have to agree to. And again, if you're in the comment section, like you took the vaccine, you can. And I was like, I don't subscribe. I would take my chances with divine health than to, because it's just like those ads where they see the happy person, they take the drug and they say choking, deaths, you may faint. All of these things could happen from this drug. And I was like, nah, I'm good, thanks. So the policies that they have is about control. It's not really about the climate. And then it's about
and let's all remember under whose government these things thrive.
These things thrive. These are their agenda. And the people who go to Davos fly their private jets.
To go and discuss climate change.
And then they go to, I remember what country was Guyana.
Yeah.
The president of Guyana, they had gotten a lot of oil, they were doing very well, and they had gone to the guy and said, are you concerned about the environment? You're making a lot of money with oil. And he said, how dare you? I love that interview.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. I remember
we're finally making
really
money.
told them
We're
off.
finally becoming prosperous. Yep. And you're asking me about the environment. Do you want us to like suffer?
Yep.
So the green things.
And then they called them out on their own
on their own
higher
emission
rate of emission. I was like,
Guyana. And you're coming to. So it's a tool of control.
It's a tool of control and subjugation. Yeah.
So and then if you live in their world, if you live in the world that they want, you won't be able to eat meat. You won't be able to change your clothes like you.
Let's not say they vaguely. The world that the deep state is driving liberalism in America. Yeah.
And if they teach you to hate your country, you can destroy your country, you can sell your country out. And that's one thing that Americans, you have to love your country. You have to pray for your country.
Pray for your country.
Because if you love the Bible says that in any nation you're in, pray for the peace and prosperity of that. I don't want to see the US come down. I don't want to see it be worse off.
Yeah.
I really love this nation, and I love people, I love leaders that actually love this nation and put this nation and Americans first. Like that's all. Like, and all Americans, right? Not the oppressed, and not just because. And this is a mark of what made America different, right? If you look back, again, we can't talk about the history of America without talking about racism and segregation and all those things, which is unfortunate. But when you look at the golden years of America, the average American was well-to-do. You could be a plumber and to send your kids to college and go on a vacation every year and have a home and have 2 cars, and your wife could be a stay-at-home mom if she wanted. That was the American dream, and what that was founded on was the well-being of every American, and nobody was giving just handouts, right? There was money enough to plan for the future generation, and so any government that is pro-prosperity for the people, I'm with them, because the free things, the loans, we will be in a cycle of debt. And I'm not saying that anyone necessarily has a great plan for removing debt, but I'm going to pitch my tent. I don't believe in free, because every time you say free money, you're taking it from my future. You're taking it from my children's future.
I really hope that those that are watching, especially Christians that are watching, and particularly those that may have been on the fence, 1, I hope that you vote. 2, I hope that you vote for President Trump. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, please. Make it quick, please. Make it quick.
Yeah,
we've gone way over time, but I'm glad we recorded this. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
So, quick question. Pastor Ricky, you brought up something about tax cuts for corporations, and so let's say they move their stuff to let's say China, right? You know that Trump put tariffs on goods coming into the country from China, and so the companies pay the tariffs to import. Wouldn't you say that this cost or whatever money they pay for importation is passed on to consumers? So indirectly, Americans are paying for the tariffs that that's been imposed on
Yeah, but what? Yeah, so true. Some companies will pay the tariffs and just don't care about it and increase the price of the goods. But then what that does is when prices of the goods increase, a small person who doesn't have a company finds an opportunity that these prices are now this, and the government is actually giving incentives to produce, so they go and start up their own production, right? Does that make sense?
No.
So if a company, let's say furniture, importing furniture in brings a tariff, and they increase the price because they're paying tariffs to the government. Now, furniture is so expensive. Someone realizes it's now more expensive than if I do it here. So you have a business that's now able to cater to a local market cheaper than what those big businesses are doing. And by doing so, he has brought in money into the company.
And not only if I do it, it will be cheaper, but the government
will also give me incentives to do so. And so either those big companies start producing here to get rid of those tariffs, or new ones will spring up, right, that will be able to cater to that market. I guess that's the way those tariffs work, because it creates an opportunity for someone to be able to compete if they're increasing their prices.
Okay, makes sense. So by the incentives, do you mean like tax credit?
Yeah, tax credits and stuff like that for starting a business. Yeah, absolutely. That's
okay, isn't that a handout?
Well, it's a
way. We never disagreed with that kind of handout. If we're talking about a handout,
a productive handout,
a handout that's supposed to enable increase in GDP and more money within the government. There's nothing wrong with that. The handout that we're saying doesn't make any sense is giving you money, giving you a check without any
or giving you a $25,000 loan for a down payment for a house. Right now you're in debt, and the government had to borrow to get or take from what they're meant to fund. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
So I guess like tariffs can work, and I think they've been shown to work. Yeah, I think tariffs work. Yeah,
Let's
can look it up.
Ayo, he had a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally. Also, you already mentioned the point that the Biden administration, they didn't, the way they approached the war, I really feel like, many lives were lost in context of like, they didn't have to, like it was really, so really poor administration. I mean, I know they were trying to help Ukraine and stuff, but I think it just caused inflation upon the country. And I feel like if Trump was in president at the time, things wouldn't have, been that bad. So I just wanted to put it out there. I mentioned it. And I wanted to ask a question in regards to while Trump, I can't really remember, but while Trump was president in the 2016 to 2020, is it 2021?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah. Do you feel like the transgender LGBTQ agenda was in support at the time? Because I think I remember like schools, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to ask like, what do you guys think about that?
No, I don't think there wasn't much motion there.
Yeah, I don't think they were like suppressed, but I don't think there was motion. Yeah, they didn't like make the strides that they have in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I mean everybody did that. If there's one thing that you know for sure is that a conservative government, especially of the type that Trump ran, would not allow certain things to. I mean, the idea is not, like she said, not that they're being suppressed, but I mean, till today, it's been accused of other things in terms of like not almost frustrating some, agendas. We didn't even talk about like sanctity of life in terms of abortion and things like that. We didn't get to discuss that.
I don't want to talk about that. I think the argument is pointless. I don't even know why there's a divide.
Right, it doesn't make sense because
interestingly,
everybody agrees, and I don't know why it's still a topic. Like the majority of the people agree on the same thing when it comes to abortion. Actually,
yeah, like I don't get it.
But somehow Trump is being sold as being anti-abortion. Meanwhile, what he believes in terms of abortion, restricting late-term abortion, is agreed upon on both sides. But for some reason, it's a thing. But I think it wasn't. I don't think there wasn't as much advancement. All right, I think that brings us to the end. Any final words?
So, I mean, I guess any last words? I would say, do the work. Like, I think there's a bit of mental laziness when people are.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry.
Especially
like,
in our generation.
Yeah, there's a bit of mental laziness when people back out of conversations like this, when people back out of issues like this. So I would rather that someone watched this and voted for
Kamala.
Yeah,
even.
Because it means that you are being a part of a crucial process that is important for your life and society, because we don't just live for today. Right, we live for tomorrow. The life we live today is going to matter for tomorrow. And I think I want every Christian to think in that direction. And if you do, vote with convictions. Yes. I'm tired of hearing I'm anti-Trump. I'm not pro-Kamala. No, take a stance and be proud. Like you should be. You can't agree with all of them. You can't agree with everything they agree with, but choose the ones that mean the most to you. And I think consider the things that we've said. And I hope that everyone that is able to vote now goes out to vote, regardless of who you vote for.
Absolutely. And I think another thing I want to say as final words for me, which I hoped that we're going to talk about, we did get a chance to, is I think we really need to break the mold and flip the narrative in terms of discussing these things. It's really upsetting to me how these discussions have been made taboo. Yeah. Right? How we're not supposed to talk about it even with family members. Right. You know, I don't think it should be like that. And it really concerns me because some people even feel like, oh, they can't be friends with someone that doesn't agree with them politically.
That's weird.
Like, that's strange to me that we can't, like, disagree on this and be church members. Yeah. We can't disagree on this and go. Do you understand? Like,
and I think
it's a problem. It's a problem, and
it's a faulty type of thinking.
And we need to change that. Like, imagine even the fact that you're ashamed to say that you're supporting Trump. That's a problem. So I think we need to have the hard conversations. We need to be able to have them openly. We need to be able to have them without any shame or guilt. I saw a church that invited Kamala for their service. And I'm like, why are people like, oh, you know, why should they do this as a Christian? I don't think that's necessary. Yeah. I think say why you think that this person should be, but allow people to be involved in the process. Yeah. Because we shouldn't police people in such a way that, oh, you can't choose who you want to. The most important thing is being a part of the decision-making process. Yeah. And then we can advise, we can share scripture, but if she goes to church, I saw people praying for her, praise God, right? Like, maybe things would change. And I should say something as well, you know, in that regard, like when we're thinking about, you know, from like our Christian angle, we must pray about these things even leading up to the election. We must pray, and we must pray with the intent that God will answer. And we must pray with the intent that God will even give us guidance. Because one of the things that's also amazing to me is that some people don't believe that God can tell them who to vote for. They don't believe that God can tell them who to vote for, but they ask God to tell them what job to take. They ask God to tell them who to marry, but they don't believe that God can tell them who to vote for. Yeah. Largely because maybe they don't think that He cares. Right. You know, so I think that the whole, you know, taboo around this thing needs to be removed. Let's have conversations. The conversations that need to be had, and don't vilify your pastor. Don't vilify your brothers in Christ for saying that they're going to vote Kamala, or for saying that they're going to vote Trump either. Like, let people, it's part of their liberty. That's the way a democracy works, is that people can have opinions and abide by the opinions. But I do hope that, you know, the case that we have made would help any Christian that's listening to make a firm decision to vote for President Trump. Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen. And expect more. Well, this is a special. This is special. So season 2 is coming soon. And yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. Awesome. Well, until next time, thank you all very much. And please make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, everything that you can do to support us. But very importantly, share. You know, get the conversation going with others. Thank you and God bless you.